Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Short Play, a series of quick tours of games I like on a variety of platforms, new and old. Today we're looking at Demon's Souls, which was a 2009 release for PlayStation 3, and at the time of recording it's recently had a remake announced for the upcoming PlayStation 5 console. So the original game was developed by FromSoftware and published in various parts of the world by Sony, Atlus and Bandai Namco. While we take the Souls series pretty much for granted these days with how popular the three Dark Souls games and Bloodborne have been, and Sekiro as well as the most recent sort of spin-off of that kind of gameplay, isn't it? Demon's Souls had a pretty rocky road to its initial release. So before the guy who is known as the main series director today, Hidetaka Miyazaki, came on board, the original concept didn't really have a kind of coherent creative vision. They knew that they wanted to make some sort of high fantasy RPG, but they didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. So since the project was already flagging when Miyazaki came on board, he agreed to help on the condition that he could do pretty much whatever he wanted with it. And he wanted to sort of mark a return to a lot of conventions of older action games, sort of the need for precision and learning patterns and that sort of thing. But he was also a bit concerned that Sony in particular would bounce off the high difficulty that he was proposing. And in fact, he made a specific point not to mention the high difficulty whenever possible. Now this had an unfortunate side effect. When the game was first demonstrated at Tokyo Game Show, a lot of people bounced off it really significantly because of the high level of difficulty. Some people were wondering if the game wasn't quite finished or if the combat sequences weren't implemented properly. And supposedly Sony president at the time, Shuhei Yoshida, came along, tried the game, played it for about 2 hours, was unable to get out of the starting area and declared it an unbelievably bad game. Now, a couple of years later, in about 2011 or so, he was interviewed by Game Informer and he kind of retracted that statement and realised that, admitted that Sony very much dropped the ball on Demon's Souls. Because his response to it was so bad that after a sort of fairly middling critical and commercial success in Japan, Sony didn't want to publish it worldwide. So that's how it ended up in the hands of Atlus in North America and Bandai Namco in Europe. And it went on to be incredibly popular in the West. And so having seen that, Sony were like, okay, we messed up there, didn't we? So, well, hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Demon's Souls is a game that I've kind of tried to play a lot over the years, but I've kind of bounced off it a few times, mostly because of that notorious difficulty. But since the last time I've tried to play any Souls game, I've learned a lot more about game design and mechanics and that sort of thing. So I've been keen to revisit this with the knowledge I have now. And so I've been playing a bit off camera, but I wanted to share a bit of gameplay with you today. I'm not going to do a full playthrough or anything like that on camera, but I did want to share a bit and talk about it as I'm playing, because I do think it's a really interesting game. And I am in fact intending to go and have a go at the full Souls series at some point. I've actually picked up a copy of the PlayStation 4 Dark Souls trilogy, and I'll probably grab Bloodborne at some point as well. But anyway, here is Demon's Souls in its original incarnation, if you've never seen it before. This is the American version published by Atlus, but the PlayStation 3 is region free, if you didn't know that. I think everyone probably knows that by now. But anyway, yeah, you can play an American version on the European PS3. And this is back from the days when we had manuals. Look at that. Lovely. Let's have a quick look at what this tells us about the game. There we are. So, long ago, the people who united the world by the power of souls awakened the Old One with their insatiable desires. The Old One brought with it a thick, colourless fog and hordes of demons. Half the world and countless souls were lost. The ancients sealed the dozing beast inside the Nexus and entrusted 6 elders with 6 precious archstones. One to the king of a small yet diligent land. One to the king of the burrowers underground. One to the wise queen of the great ivory tower. One to the chieftain of lost and ill-fortuned souls. One to the shaman of the tempest-worshipping shadowmen. And the last to the great giants of the northern lands. In the present day, the northern kingdom of Boletaria, ruled by King Allant XII, was abruptly swallowed by a strange colourless fog. None who dared penetrate the deep fog ever returned, until Valifax of the Twin Fangs broke free and told the world of Boletaria's plight. The old King Allant aroused the Old One, the great beast below the Nexus. from its eternal slumber, which brought the colourless fog, unleashing terrible demons that hunted men and claimed their souls. Those who lost their souls also lost their minds. The mad attacked the sane, and chaos reigned. The legend spread quickly. Mighty warriors were drawn to the accursed land, but none have returned. The colourless deep fog now slowly creeps beyond Boletaria's borders, and humankind faces a slow and steady extinction as the deep fog will eventually swallow all lands near and far. But Boletaria has one last hope. A lone warrior has braved the baneful fog. Has the land found its saviour, or have the demons found a new slave? Well, only one way to find out. Let's go play Demon's Souls.
Okay, here we are with Demon's Souls. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be any great expert on this game or an amazing Soulsborne player or anything like that. In fact, this is the first Souls game that I've really got into. I've played this before now, and I've played a bit of Dark Souls before, but it's only really recently that I've started playing Demon's Souls seriously. And I was never quite sure if I enjoyed Souls games. But it turns out that I do. So, here we are. And shortly after realising that I was enjoying myself with this game, I subsequently picked up the Dark Souls Trilogy collection for PS4, which is all 3 of the Dark Souls games with all their DLC on discs in a nice box set. So, that's nice. Now, at the start there, you'll notice that it tried to log into a server which no longer exists, which is terribly sad. If you're familiar with the Souls series at all, you're probably already familiar with the online features. But on the off chance that you aren't, there are several aspects to a Souls games online. One is the fact that you can leave messages and read messages from other players. Rather than those being freeform text, though, they're made out of phrases that you stick together. And so a lot of people get very creative with those phrases. But obviously you can't do that anymore because the online service for this game is no longer active. Then there's also the ability to summon other players to help you in co-op against bosses, which you can also not do anymore in this game. So you have to do it all yourself. But the good side is you can no longer be invaded by black phantoms, which are other players who are out to ruin your day. No, I say that like it's a bad thing, but it's an integral part of playing Souls online is having to deal with other players every so often. There are ways around that. You can just sort of disconnect your system from the internet if you don't want to involve yourself in that side of things. But some would argue that that is a core part of the Souls experience. But either way, you can't do that in Demon's Souls anymore because the servers aren't active anymore. Now, I'm a reasonable distance into this game, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the earlier locales because I know that I can get through those without having to repeat myself too much. So I'm just going to take you on a bit of a tour of this first stage, which is the Boletarian Palace. Unlike Dark Souls, which has a very sort of open world structure, Demon's Souls is split into 5 discrete stages, which are each then further subdivided into usually 3 or 4 subsectors. The game doesn't specifically refer to them as such, but if you look at people talking about Demon's Souls Online, they will refer to them a bit like people talk about like Mario levels or Castlevania levels or that sort of thing. So here we are in 1-1, for example, World 1, Area 1. And that is outside this palace. When you first start playing the game, this is your first encounter with the game and its combat system. Now, if you've not played a Souls game before, it is an action RPG. It is a combat-centric game. Now, I remember when I was on, I think it was Gameplay, someone got very angry with me for calling it a hack and slash. It is a hack and slash, let's face it. It's a very good hack and slash with very intricate, deliberate combat, but you are still fighting your way through dungeons rather than sort of interacting with characters and that sort of thing. But yeah, Souls combat is all based on stamina, which is the green bar up in the top left. And defending against attacks with your shield takes stamina, sprinting takes stamina, and dodge rolling takes stamina as well, as does swinging your weapon. And so success in combat in this is about managing that stamina effectively so that you can time your attack and defense so that you can fend off enemies without taking damage as much as is humanly possible. Now, I am way over leveled for this part of the game at the minute, so I am flattening everything with one hit, which is nice. In the early game in particular, it's important to realise that this isn't a game where you need to sort of attack as quickly as possible and mash buttons and so on. In fact, if you try and play like that, you will have real problems. So I'm actually playing a character class known as a Royal, which starts with fairly strong magical abilities. So they're basically a mage. But what I've done is, if we look at my equipment, I've got this weapon here, which is called a Crescent Falchion. There are lots of different pieces of equipment in Demon's Souls, and they can be upgraded in various ways. And when you upgrade them, the prefix on them determines what sort of weapon they are and what special abilities they might have. Whoops. And in the case of Crescent Weapons, what that means is, one, they regenerate your magic points, which is obviously very helpful for a mage, and two, more significantly, they scale all of their damage off your magic stat rather than your strength and your dexterity and any other stats that sort of more physically inclined character classes might make use of. So using a Crescent weapon means that as a mage, I can continue leveling my magic stat and still be able to participate in physical combat. Which is good, because this game provides a mix of enemies, some of which you will need to engage in close-up, face-to-face combat, and some of which you will need to engage at range. So as a mage... Ow. As a mage, I can engage ranged enemies with my spells. And I can use my Crescent Sword to attack them and do a decent amount of damage to them. Whereas if I was a more physically inclined character, my ranged combat would be taken care of by bows and crossbows. Whoops. Whereas now I have Soul Ray, which is a spell you get a little bit later in the game. It does a lot more damage than the basic spell you start with as a Royal. Again, there's quite a lot of spells, but you have some quite interesting choices to make as you're progressing through the game. Because what happens is that the various bosses, they drop their souls when you beat them. And you can use those souls for various things. So you can consume them to add to your soul stock, which is the number you can see down in the bottom right of the screen. And that acts as a combination of your currency and your experience points. So you spend those on both leveling up and on purchasing things. So those boss souls are very valuable from that regard. But they're probably more useful for turning into items of equipment, spells, ow, and all that sort of thing. But obviously, if you do that, whatever you choose to do with them, you can only do once, because there's only one of the bosses, and the bosses don't respawn. So you have to make some difficult choices. So you can't just sort of spunk them on the first thing that you see. You need to think about whether that's something that you really want. Now, this enemy is pretty interesting, because he is way more powerful than everything else in this stage. And what he's an example of Souls games in general, starting with this one, possibly Kingsfield as well. I've never played a Kingsfield game, but I suspect it probably does something similar. It's a way of wordlessly telling you, don't go that way yet. Because Souls games are very much about embracing the idea of learning from your mistakes. And so, although it's annoying to die over and over again, initially, as you play more, you start to realise that it's a core part of the game. It's an important part of the game to die and to figure things out for yourself. And the further you go in the game, the more you'll recognise some of its more common hazards and things to watch out for. And the more you'll be able to deal with them. So playing this game is a constant learning process. So it is something you kind of have to commit to a bit. That said, I've sort of held off playing any of these games seriously for a long time because I was a bit concerned about having to make that level of commitment. But I was quite pleasantly surprised how quickly you get into the groove of what it's doing. And how quickly you come to understand that you can't simply rush your way through the levels. Even seemingly easy stages like this. If I was just trying to hack and slash my way through this stage, I would get myself hurt or even killed. And so it really pays to take your time, explore thoroughly, observe your enemy's behaviour, and don't count on things like being able to get the first strike, because you won't necessarily be able to do that. So it's generally best to take a reasonably cautious approach. Make sure you understand the situation you're getting into before you get into it. And stay safe. Who's shooting at me? Oh, he's above me. Excuse the emergency vehicles outside. Another knight. Bring it on, good sir. You try and shield bash me. I'll have you. And I will take your stuff. And I will stab your friend in the back. Or the front. That's good too. Bye-bye. And then you have bits like this, where you can take advantage of environmental features and use them to your advantage. Whee! Watch all the people die, and you get all those lovely souls for them. Which is nice. Because if you don't do that, someone will most certainly do that to you. Again, that is something you will learn from experience, because it will happen to you at least once. Or maybe not now I've told you about it, but yeah, if you're unfamiliar with this game, it will happen to you at least once, and then you'll realise, maybe I'd be careful when going round corners and looking at things that have large boulders in them, because large boulders are very heavy and can kill me. Right, I don't want to go down here for the minute because there's a big slobbering dragon who will set fire to me, and that's no fun at all. So let's go back this way. I'm mostly using this play session here as an excuse to grind a bit, because the actual point I'm at in the game is getting quite challenging, and I could do with earning a few more stat points. Ouch! And if I can show you all some earlier parts of the game in the process, so much the better, say I. The physics of the combat in this game is just great. Like, it properly understands things like the fact that when you swing a sword into a group of people, it's going to hit all those people. And it understands things like the fact that it might hit the walls, or if you're fighting in a confined space, it's very hard to use a weapon that you slash with. Crossbows are not very good point-blank weapons. So that's all very nice. But anyway. Ow. I am hardly taking any damage from these though, which is nice. Because whenever you're playing a part of the game that is the correct level for you, taking one hit is pretty significant. So you want to try and avoid doing that wherever possible. But at the minute, it's not too much of a risk. Even these horrible slobbering demon things here, which I can take down with my magic. But anyway, I won't show you just all the easy stuff here. I'll show you a later stage as well. Just so you can get an idea of how things progress. Because the nice thing about this being split into these discrete worlds, rather than being one coherent open world, is that they can all have a bit of a different theme. So, for example, this first one here, you're exploring this cool, very authentic feeling medieval castle. But elsewhere, as you'll see in just a moment, there are lots of other environments to work your way through and explore and so on. And just the design of these stages is outstanding, because they're all designed in such a way that they feel like you're going on a long journey, but they're actually quite compact in size. They sort of weave and intertwine around themselves, and you unlock new passageways. And like you saw there, I went all the way up around those battlements and around those different places, and we ended up back where we started. So there's lots of really clever design like this in there. Excuse me, hit my microphone stand. Right, let's go and have a look at the third world here. So we'll start from the beginning. I've actually done the first section of this world and beaten the boss, but I'll take you through it, and I'll actually have a look at the second part of this world for the very first time, along with you. So these load screens here, these are all the different NPCs that you'll encounter as you play through the game. Some of them are useful, some of them less so. Sage Frake there, he can teach you magic in exchange for demon souls. There's some interesting mechanics in this game to do with, I guess you'd call it alignment. They call it world tendency in this game. But what happens is each one of the 5 worlds... See, I'm taking a lot more damage from them. Each one of the 5 worlds is associated with a particular shade. And you can see that Boletarian Palace is glowing quite white. Tower of Latria is glowing slightly white. Whereas Stonefang Tunnel is a bit dark. And what happens is, if you die in human form... you'll notice I'm not making any footsteps in a minute because I'm in soul form. If you die in human form... the tendency for the world you died in will tip towards black. And that has the possibility of making things more difficult for yourself. So more powerful enemies might show up. Certain bad things might happen. You might get these black phantoms showing up, who are sort of dark incarnations of the various characters. That side of things was a lot more effective when the online was active, because each time you logged into the service, it sort of took an average of everyone's tendencies and so on. So it was a little bit different each time you played, whereas now you can only play it offline. It's entirely dependent on your own actions, and it's quite hard to manipulate in some ways. Basically, what happens is you defeat a boss or certain black phantoms who are in the world, and it will tip back towards white. But if you die in human form, it will tip back towards black. So it's a lot easier to make it turn black than it is to turn white. And good things happen at white as well as black. In fact, as you might expect, better things happen at white than they do in black. So black has some certain specific events that you can find and enemies to fight who can give you sort of drop specific treasures and so on. But at white world tendency, while you're in soul form like I am now... Oh no, I have died! There we are. It was going to happen at least once, wasn't it? Yeah, in white world tendency, then you will do more damage in soul form, so it's actually quite advantageous to be dead. Right. So what happens when you die in this, if you've not played a Souls game before, is if you were in human form, then you will switch back to Souls form. The entire level will reset, so everything you killed is now alive again. Treasures that you picked up that were in static places do not respawn, so you pick those up and you just keep those. You don't lose those. But yeah, you basically go back to the start of the stage, or where you entered the stage anyway. So if you start from the checkpoint that's after the first boss, for example, you will pick up from there again. But either way, the whole level will reset. And you have to do it all again. And you will drop your bloodstain on the floor like this. And if you can get back to your bloodstain and touch it before you die again, then you will get all of the souls you collected back again. Otherwise, you will lose them all. Right. So the troublesome thing here is this Mind Flayer. Copyright Wizards of the Coast. Because he's got some very nasty spells. And so you need to kind of jump out and kill him before you can get any of them off into your face. And you also need to watch out for these prisoner ghoul type things as well, because although they're not super dangerous, if they sneak up on you when you're in the middle of trying to do something else, it can be very inconvenient. Solid hit. Uh-oh. He's down. One thing I do like to note in this game is it has really good use of sound as feedback. So like you'll notice when you kill something, it makes a very distinctive crunch noise. That sort of crunching squelch noise. So if you're looking at their hit point bar and you're not entirely sure whether you actually finished them off or not, all you have to do is just listen out for that sound. And if you didn't hear that sound, then you didn't kill them. That's especially useful when you are using spells to fight with. Because when you're attacking something with a sword or something like that, it makes kind of splatty, squelchy noises anyway. But if you're attacking with a spell from range, if the sort of mystical sound of your spell impacting on something is replaced by a sticky, wet crunch, then, you know, you can stop casting. So anyway, this level here, this is called the Tower of Latria, and it's, as you can see, themed around a prison. And there's all sorts of lore that goes behind that and so on. Help me. And people locked in there, as you can hear. But this level's also a pretty good example of how this game draws as many influences from survival horror as it does from traditional medieval style role-playing games. So a lot of people regard this as, although it's Japanese, it has a lot of Western influences in there, and that was entirely deliberate. They wanted to do a sort of classical Western style medieval fantasy with it, but by combining that with sort of elements of what you'd expect to see in maybe stuff like Silent Hill, and there's a bit of Lovecraft in here as well, like the Mind Flayers. They look like very sort of Lovecraftian things. I know they're also associated with D&D, but they're quite a Lovecraftian sort of foe. And obviously spiritual successor to the Souls series, Bloodborne, is very Lovecrafty as well. So it's a really interesting melting pot of influences on this game. And it's got a very distinctive look and feel to it that I rather like. I mean, equally, I can see why people bounce off it, because it is very grimdark. This game is pretty much the definition of grimdark, because it is both grim and dark. But, you know, sometimes you're in the mood for that sort of thing. Sometimes you really want to feel like you're struggling against absolute adversity. And oh boy, in this game, you are most certainly struggling against adversity. I just love the sound design on this level. Like there's the lady singing in her cell, and the way that the Mind Flayers are, they ring their bells to sort of raise the alarm when they see you and that sort of thing. And again, this is another really good example of interesting level design. So like you can probably see that I know the route through this level now, but actually sort of figuring out this route and unlocking all the doors and gates that you need to unlock along the way is a really interesting sort of environmental puzzle that unfolds over a fairly small geographical area. But it's cool and it's satisfying to figure out. And it's really enjoyable to get your head around how these different environments are designed and how you get from one place to another and how they relate to each other and how you can get good vantage points and enemies and that sort of thing. Right, here we are. Finally back outside. In the dark, obviously. So we can then head through here. There's some really cool bits of scenery and little set pieces and stuff around this game. So, like for example, this huge statue thing here. I don't think I can turn it back on again, but yeah, when you first see it, it opens up and it reveals like all these crossbows that will absolutely murder you if you're not careful. And you can see all of the previous unfortunate victims who have fallen prey to it. But you, of course, are smart enough to get around the back of it and turn it off before you try and proceed any further. And then you've got this lovely dramatic ascent up towards this church here. And the first time you do this, there is an invisible black phantom up here who will try and fill your ass with crossbow bolts. So again, that is likely another learning experience for you. But then you make your way into the church. And there's a boss fight in the church, which I've already done, so you won't see now. But look, it's a pretty cool church. Just like this game has been designed with such loving care and attention paid to the environments in particular. It's just such a distinctive look and feel that really captures that feeling of Western medieval with a twist, I guess you'd call it. Okay, so this cuts in here. This is taking me to 3-2, the second part of this world. So, unlike most of the other levels, there's sort of like a hard transition between the first and second segment of this stage. So whereas in, say, the Boletarian Palace, the first stage, we could just go back through the gate and go back to the first stage. In this one, you'd have to actually teleport back to the main hub, the Nexus, and then come back. Right, like I say, I haven't explored this area at all yet, so I'm just going to poke my head in here a little bit and see how things go. It may be disastrous, you never know, but, well, you never know until you try, do you? So let's wander up these stairs very carefully, and yes, you can fall off and kill yourself. Learning to be very careful doing things like climbing stairs and wandering over platforms. This archstone here, this will allow you to teleport back to the Nexus. And that also acts as your checkpoint as well. So if you die, you will come back to that archstone. Right. This bridge looks like something's going to try and kill us along here. So let's just put the old shield up. And be... It's going to be them, isn't it? Those are going to come to life and kill me. Dum-ti-dum-ti-tum. Dum-ti-dum-ti-tum. No? Alright, it's all good. Carry on. See, this is a thing with this game. There's just such this air of menace about everything. And you're just like... in constant fear of death. And that's all achieved with things like the environmental design and the sound design and... Oh, hello. Hello? Oh, hello. I knew you'd come to life. Because that's what you do. You're not that hard to kill, though. So that's good. You're also fairly dim. So, good. There's another one. Oh, the ones that come to life look a little bit different. And they're a bit vulnerable to magic, so that's good. Hit him. Get back here, you coward. Where are you going? Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Yeah, you like that, don't you? Good. It's a really unpleasant heartbeat sound coming from somewhere. I don't know what or why. Normally the heartbeat sound in this game is an indication that either you or an enemy is bleeding and losing hit points. Another gargoyle up there. Oh, maybe it's the sound of their wings flapping. I think that's what it might be. Is that his shadow? Hard to say. Hello. Have some magic in your face. Get off my bridge. I love early Havoc ragdoll physics. It's using them really nicely for like pots and barrels and crates and stuff that all shatter really satisfyingly. There's never actually anything in them to my knowledge, but smashing them is quite helpful, because otherwise if you're trying to fight something and you're sort of trying to back away from things, then if there's pots and barrels and stuff in your way, then that can be bad for your health. And then sometimes there's parts where you just suspect that they've just been added for a bit of fun. Hiding a treasure behind them as well. A renowned hero's soul. That's an item that... Oh, hello. That's an item that you can consume in order to get some more souls. And that's one way that this game sort of balances out the seeming unfairness of losing all your souls when you die, and like permanently losing them all if you die twice without retrieving them. Because you have these soul items that you can consume, all those stay in your inventory even if you die. So oh, that's something's ass. That's probably where I can hear the heartbeats, isn't it? Get over here, you prick. Yeah, there's something big inside that tower, and I'm not entirely sure. I want to know what it is. However, the temptation to poke it with a sharp thing is very large. But I suspect that'd be a bad idea, wouldn't it? You think? No, it's all good. It's evidently unbothered by my small gnat-like strikes on its bulging whatever that is. I'm sure we'll find out exactly what that is before very long. Right, let's go back in here. Oh, it's whatever's in that pit, isn't it? Well, guess where we're going. Yeah, I can understand why people bounce off these games, because, you know, for all the elitists say, oh, Dark Souls isn't hard, you just need to learn how to play. It is hard. But equally, yes, you do need to learn how to play. And once you understand the things that the game is telling you and the way that the game teaches you various things, you can get better at it. Because it's designed exceptionally well, mechanically and structurally. I hear gargoyles. There he is. I'll leave him be for the minute. He's not bothering us yet. That's oh, hello. It's another thing down the pit. It's a I don't know what that is. But it doesn't look very nice, does it? Come on, big guy. Some regard playing mages as being easy mode in this game. I regard it as being tactically sound. Oh, hello. You know how to use a crossbow. In that case, I know how to use Soul Ray. Get off. Nearly fell off the stairs myself then. Come on. Oh. Yeah, I really don't know what that is, but it's... not very nice, I'm guessing. Don't need that. You do have to bear in mind encumbrance in this game. So like if you're carrying around too much stuff, you won't be able to pick up any more stuff. And if you equip too much stuff, then your movement speed and dodging ability and stuff will be compromised as well. So as a primarily magically inclined character, I have to wear light armor, such as the robes that I'm wearing. Otherwise, I can't really move around very effectively. Which is not what you want in a game like this. Chop! Bye-bye! Right, that swirling mass over there, that is a fog door, which generally indicates a transition to a new area. But a large one like... Oh, hello! Ow! A large one like that can sometimes indicate that you're about to enter a boss room as well. So, I guess we're going to have to see what that is. Into the fog. Just an area transition. I'm not 100% sure why some of those are there, or if it's literally just there to make you uneasy about going to the next area. It's also sort of an indicator of progress, I guess. So, like, you know, if you can see a fog door ahead of you, that's somewhere you want to be aiming for, because that's going to lead you towards your next sort of important checkpoint, as it were. Oh, I don't like these stairs. Oh, a lift. Ow! Oh, ow. Have some healing grass, thank you very much. Who was shooting at me? Yeah, I think I have slight vertigo. And this game triggers it something rotten. When I'm doing things like climbing up those narrow towers and that sort of thing. Now I know these guys aren't really doing me any harm right now, but there are certain situations where... Oh. Evidently I've triggered something. Uh-oh. Okay, right, so I guess that's what I'm doing in this stage then. Is I'm breaking all these chains. So you'll notice at no point has this game actually told me what I'm supposed to be doing. You just naturally infer it from the design of the environment and the design of the levels and an occasional cutscene like that. There are absolutely no points in this game where you have a waypoint marker or an objective indicator or a quest list or anything like that. It's all about exploring, figuring out things for yourself, and I guess to a certain extent setting your own goals. Because in order to do things like upgrade your weapons and progress your character in certain ways and that sort of thing, you're going to have to go out of your way to sort of find certain items and gain enough souls and that sort of thing. And also, all of these levels really reward straying from the beaten path, because there's pretty much always something interesting to find, whether it's an item you can collect or a piece of equipment or a piece of lore or a character you can interact with who you can then use for character progression or something like that. It really doesn't surprise me that if you look online, there is so much information to digest about this game. If you look at the Demon's Souls wiki, there's so much detail on there about the various game mechanics and how you progress through it, and the world tendency thing that I mentioned earlier, and strategies for the bosses, and lore theories behind the different characters and the things that you hear about in the game, and all that sort of thing. But anyway, we've been going for nearly 50 minutes now, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to head back towards the Archstone, and just go and basically save my progress. So the game is constantly auto-saving as you play, so I could quit right now, but it's generally best to head back to the Nexus when you're done with the session, because that way you can sort of start fresh next time. And what will happen is the next time I come to this stage, yes, the level will reset, so all those gargoyles will be back. But that bit that I did with breaking the chain and so on, that will persist. And so important bits of progress that relate to actually making your way through the stages, those persist. So you can sort of finish the session confident in the knowledge that you've actually done something useful. But yeah, anyway, that was an interesting journey of discovery into that stage. I'm going to enjoy exploring that in a bit more detail, I think. As this is a really cool, really tense stage. And I'm glad I made it through safely. There we go. I only died once in about 50 minutes. Not bad going, eh? Right, what I will do before we finish is I'm just going to consume all those soul items we found, because we found quite a few of them, I think. Yeah, we got 6 of these. This is one slightly annoying thing. The interface is quite clunky. I don't know if they fixed that in Dark Souls, because I haven't played it enough to know that yet, but anyway, it's a minor niggle at best. But yeah, you'll see that each of these soul items are worth a different amount of souls, depending on whether they are a soldier's soul or a hero's soul, and how well known that hero or soldier or whatever was known. So renowned hero souls are worth more than unknown soldier's soul, for example. Right, so I've now got just under 25,000 souls. If I can find the Maiden in Black, who is hanging around somewhere. Where are you? No, seriously, where are you? You're hiding up here, I see.
Thou seekest soul power, dost thou not? Then touch the demon inside me.
Touch the demon inside her.
Soul of the mind, keep
Right, so this is the level up system. So you spend souls to increase one of your stats by 1, and that makes your level go up by 1, basically. And you'll see that each stat has various different
might be mended.
effects. So at the moment, you can probably tell I've been focusing on leveling my magic and my intelligence and a bit of my vitality, because those are the things that I'm using the most. So vitality is affecting how much I can carry, and my hit points. Everything affects your physical defense as well, so the more you level up generally, the more resistant you'll be to general attacks from enemies, even if you're a mage. So that's why I was taking next to no damage in that Boletarian Palace stage, is because my physical defense is now high enough. So I'm going to add another point to intelligence so I get some more magic points, and my spell capacity is increased so I can actually equip more spells
Art
now.
thou done? May thine strength help the world be mended.
I love the fact she's slightly fluffs her line now. That's very endearing. But yes, so I can equip more magic now. So I have a chat with my friend Sage Frake down here.
Bravo! You have brought more demon souls to me. Thank you. You are a fine magician.
I am a fine magician,
Let me pass on further arts of the wand.
if you know what I mean.
I am one step closer to the essence of the demon soul. Our human potential is great.
Alright, so with Sage Frake here, I can learn certain spells from demon souls. Unfortunately, I've used all these ones now, I think. But you can also remember spells. So it's sort of, I guess you call it D&D style, in that in order to use a spell, you have to have it prepared and memorized. And each spell takes up a certain number of slots. So like if you look in the bottom right corner there, Soul Ray takes up 1 slot. If I look at what else I have equipped, I have Warding here, which greatly reduces damage taken. That takes up 2 slots. And I've also got Cloak, which is basically a stealth spell. That takes up 1 slot. And I've got 1 spare one still. So I could equip something like, say, Flame Toss here, which allows me to use fire attacks instead of magic attacks. Those are considered as 2 different elements in this. Or I could do Enchant Weapon or Curse Weapon. Oh, I couldn't do Curse Weapon because that's 3 slots needed. I can do Water Veil, which is resistance to fire, which is quite useful. So I will equip that for the minute, actually. Because fire attacks can be a bit of a pain.
Bring me more demon souls when you can. I patiently await you, my fine magician friend.
Good man. Anyway, that is a very quick tour of Demon Souls. There is obviously a lot more to this game than what I've shown you there, but hopefully that's given you an idea of how this game works, what you can expect from it, and whether or not you might be interested in checking out either in its PS3 incarnation, which is what we're playing here, or in the remake that is coming for PlayStation 5. So be interested to see what that's like. But I thought now was as good a time as any to start exploring the PlayStation 3 version that has been on my shelf for nearly 10 years. And here we are. Anyway, that's that. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.